I'm Daryl Cagle, MSNBC.com's cartoonist, chatting here with my buddy Steve Kelley, the cartoonist for the New Orleans Times-Picayune. He's a brilliant cartoonist.
Brilliant.
We'll link to his cartoons. He's funny as all hell.
Not sure about that, but anyway, here we are.
Anyway, we're at the AAEC convention, and I thought I would ask Steve for his views on cartooning and views on what's going on in the profession.
Oh gosh, could you be more vague? Cartooning is it is a very good way to earn your living if you have a job and can maintain it. That's my opinion on that. It's really nice to have as part of your job description reading the newspaper and looking at news online and continuing to educate yourself as a part of your daily job.
Well, you know, you're talking to people on our website who are already editorial cartoon fans, and there are a lot of them, a whole lot more now online than in the days when people just saw the cartoonists in their local newspaper.
Well, yes. I don't know what else to tell you about. I mean, the state of cartooning is kind of in flux, and it's a shrinking profession. There is in some respects, I guess, a winnowing out process. We're trying to figure out how to sustain our profession and the newspaper profession for as long as is viable. And we've been talking here at the convention about different ways to do that, and it seems to be a consensus among the cartoonists that we should, both as cartoonists and newspapers, should be compelling news sites online to pay to use our content. So much of it is given away for free now, both news coverage and cartoons and everything else, that it's hard for newspapers to pay people to gather news and to write news and then receive nothing for its publication on the web around the world. So we just had a speaker who said that one of the potential models is to go to war with Google and I guess Amazon and some of these news sites, and say, look, if you're going to use our stories on your sites, you're going to have to pay something for them. And everyone seemed in agreement with that. There was thunderous applause for that notion.
Another argument among cartoonists is between the funny cartoonists and the serious cartoonists. You are among the very funniest of the cartoonists.
I hope so, but I think that by being funny, you don't necessarily cease to be penetrating, I guess would be the word. I think you still get that cartoonists whose work is funny still make very good points, compel people to think about issues, and undermine the credibility of these bozos who hold office. I just find it much more interesting, rather than seeing someone axe murdered, to see someone beaten to death with a rubber chicken. I think it's funnier. I think you end up accomplishing the same end, and it's just much more interesting for someone to watch that. I mean, the other makes you, kind of turn your head and go, ugh. But enough whacks with a rubber chicken and someone will succumb. There's no doubt about that.
So any insights into your creative process on how to be so funny?
I think that over time, reading a lot of humor, you begin to see how it works. I tell people frequently that humor is like math. It's formulaic. It's like algebra, which, ironically enough, I loathed algebra, but I begin to see that there are patterns that emerge in comedy and writing jokes. And I could show you 10 of my cartoons from the last probably 3 years that are exactly the same, except you'd never know it, but they rely upon the very same construction. And if I pointed them out to you, you would go, But he's right about that. They are, in a sense, identical. The people might be different, the furniture in the background might be different, but the structure of the joke is exactly the same. And when you do this for many, many years, you begin to learn those structures, and you see how a certain issue or event that takes place in the news just drops very neatly into one of those structures, and then you create the cartoon around that. I know that sounds very arcane, but Daryl said that you're all big cartoon fans and aficionados, so maybe it makes sense.
Steve, most of our readers on our site are high school and middle school kids doing their classroom assignments. The number one email I get is, explain the cartoon to me, my assignment is due tomorrow.
Oh, goodness.
What do you have to say to the high school and middle school vast audience for your editorial cartoons?
Well, I'm glad you're coming to the site. I'm glad you're interested in political cartoons. It's a terrific way and kind of an amusing way to go back and look at historical events, because it's through the lens of someone who is typically, smart, understands the issue, and is able to present it in a way that is interesting and amusing. I think that once you study political cartoons a lot, they will become much more easily understood. You learn symbols, and a lot of cartoons use the same symbols repeatedly. Elephants and donkeys, and the dove of peace, the peace symbol, the Star of David. You see these symbols used repeatedly in cartoons, and they become a shorthand for communication. So I'm glad you're looking at political cartoons, and I hope you continue to all the way up into adulthood. It's a great way to learn about history.
Commend all of those teachers who force the kids to read the editorial cartoons.
Well, sure, and you should also be reading the editorials and the news stories. And I hope you read them in newspapers, but if not there, then online. Everything you read about what's going on in the world around you will serve you throughout your life. You really need to be dialed in and informed about what's going on in your town, your city, your state, your country, and the world in which you live.
Any advice for young aspiring cartoonists?
What do you plan to do for a living? I think that we're going to figure it out. I think that there has never been a greater demand for what cartoonists do for a living. It's just we're going through a transition and figuring out how it's going to be paid for, and there's a lot of dislocation in our profession now, but I think it's going to settle out. And if you want to be a political cartoonist, I feel certain that there is going to be room for you and money for you somehow, if you're good.
On that note of optimism, I'll ask if there's anything else you'd like to add.
Gosh, I don't think there is. I just commend you, because if you're reading as deeply as political cartoons, that's terrific. You're well on your way to being well educated.
Well, you're a gentleman, Steve.
Thanks for tuning in. All right,
okay,
bye-bye.
See you later.